Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
The Christian Girl's Guide to Modern Dating.
We are just two single girls trying to help you navigate dating well as Christian women. Thanks for coming back for another episode.
We're glad you're here.
Yes,
we are. Navigate some interesting waters in this dating world today.
Yes, we are.
I guess.
But first, we want you to know, so today we are going to be talking about just conversations that Bethany and I have been having about dating, singleness, relationships, breakups, boys in general, guys, men, whatever, just in our own personal lives, because yes, we talk a lot on here, obviously, because we have to keep the podcast going, but we do talk about this in real life too. And
a lot.
We have been having some really interesting, honest conversations recently, and we felt like they were things that we needed to talk to you guys about.
Yeah, they've been kind of like some recurring themes, I guess you could say. So we just thought, maybe other people will be helped by this too.
Yes. So, but there was, once we kind of sat down to plan it, there was a lot to talk about, and we're not going to be able to cover it all in this episode, unfortunately, but the exclusive video that we do for our patrons over on our Patreon page, that's a lot of P's, it's a lot of alliteration. The video for the month of November is going to cover what we aren't able to cover today in this episode. So in order to gain access to that video, you can go to our website, lookingforthemiddle.com, click on the resources tab at the top, and you can look through their different options for you to partner with us here at Looking for the Middle, and certain levels of that partnership will give you access to this video. So we would love for y'all to do that, so you can, if you like what you hear today, go hear more of it here in the next week or two.
Yeah.
So be sure to go do that. Okay, so then let's jump into our question of the day before we start talking about all of our personal conversations.
I know.
How do you like to relax?
Poolside.
Oh, duh. Why didn't I even think of that? Of course.
Give me,
Do you read at the pool?
Nope. I put in my headphones.
Okay.
And I listen to a book or a podcast. Normally it's that.
So not music?
Nope.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And then I am good.
You people watch too a lot when
I
you're
do.
at the pool.
Yes.
Are you one of those people that puts headphones in and you don't necessarily listen to anything?
I have done that before.
Okay.
If there seem to be really interesting or bizarre conversations going on, I'll stand there in the pool with my little headphones on and there's not anything playing.
Yeah. It's all an illusion.
That, and you just gotta make sure you have like your darkest sunglasses so that you can people watch and they can't tell you're looking at them.
Yes.
But yeah, that's like the perfect Saturday to me.
That's your thing.
All day by the pool. I'll go grab food and go back, and I am a happy girl.
Okay. That sounds nice.
It does.
We went to the pool the 1st of October here because it was so hot.
I know.
And then the next day it was like 60 degrees. It was just like a hard, fast turn.
It was a good, I like doing things for the last time when I know it's the last time.
Yes, agreed.
I don't like it when I look back and I'm like, I didn't realize that was the last time. And that sounds silly. We're talking about going to the pool for the summer. No. But in small and big things, I like knowing this is the last time. So that was a good,
final day of the pool.
I'm not going anymore kind of thing. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
What's yours?
What is mine? The first thing I thought of was going to get a massage. That's I don't do it a lot because it's expensive, but when I do, it's the greatest thing. I'll schedule it in the afternoon so I can just kind of have a slow day at home, and then I go get a massage, and then I go get food on my way home and come home and watch a movie.
Go straight to bed.
And then go to bed. And it's the greatest thing. I just the introvert in me likes to do things where I don't have to talk to people.
Yeah.
Which sounds so awful, but...
No, I totally get that.
There are just times I'm like, I just want to be by myself and in my own thoughts, and maybe read a book or do some journaling. And I have been spending a lot of time on my porch, even though I don't have furniture on it yet.
Oh,
but it's just
this is the time
peaceful.
of year for it.
Yes, and it's cool, and the leaves are changing, and it's pretty. So
I like it.
That's how I relax.
Okay.
So
let's
jump into all the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and so I know this probably seems pretty random to you guys, so let's explain ourselves a little bit.
Why are we doing this?
So, as you guys know, and we're not trying to just be like teases, but we both went through breakups over the summer, and we have an episode in the next probably couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think it's next few weeks. It's in November.
We're going to do a whole episode on breakups and heartbreak and walking through that and all that stuff. But because of that, we've had a lot of conversations in the past few months that are like, one of us will say to the other, like, hey, we talk about this on the podcast. Like, we've got to practice what we preach, for lack of a better term now. And it's kind of a rubber meets the road kind of thing. Like, okay, we say these things all the time, but what are we really going to believe and what are we really going to do when it comes down to it and we find ourselves in these situations? So we've just had a ton of conversations about a ton of different things kind of revolving around that and things we've struggled with and things we've, dealt with and wrestled with. And so we wanted to just kind of throw that out there for you guys, and maybe some of this will be helpful for y'all too.
Yeah. And then with that, we've both kind of finally come to a place now months later where we're thinking, okay, maybe we are ready to start dating again. And so with that in mind, that brings a whole different set of conversations because you're like, oh my gosh, I am jumping back into something. Yeah. Am I ready for this?
Well, and isn't it funny? Like, we sit here and we talk about dating and boys for hours a week, like for this.
Yeah.
And then when it comes down to it, I'm like, oh my word, what do I say? What do I text him? I don't know what to do. He said this and I have no idea what to do. Yeah. And it's like, we should know what to do, right?
Yes, we should. I feel like we should. Maybe it's a good thing that we don't. It makes us feel
don't.
And that was part of the reason, too, we wanted to do this episode is we want y'all to know, even though we have a podcast on this, like, we do not know all the answers. And we don't have it all together. And we still wrestle with a lot of the topics that we talk about on this podcast. And we wanted to be transparent about that and not just think, oh, I went through this one time, so we're going to talk about it on an episode, and then I'm never going to struggle with it again. Like, no, that's not the case at all, as you will see as we keep talking.
Yeah. But also, tip, if you don't want to be held accountable for, things you've said about certain things and taking your own advice, don't record it and put it out there to where anyone could go back and listen and say, hey, you said this, now you have to do it. It's like, oh man.
I literally sent Bethany an episode this morning. I was like, I need you to go listen to this and then tell me your feedback.
Yeah. And I texted her back. I was like, okay, I listened to it. You can call me and lecture me about whatever you wanted to lecture me about now.
Or don't. It's fine if you don't want to. Yes. I was like, oh, I am definitely calling back.
I got a lecture.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we have to remind each other just as much as we talk to y'all about this. So.
And one of the reasons we have to do that is neither of us are very patient people.
Definitely not. And that's the first thing that we both agreed should be at the top of this
Didn't
list.
have to think about it at all.
No, is just... We've talked so much about patience, and I literally wrote in the notes in all caps, this is so freaking hard, because I'm like, I don't really know what else to say about patience, but you would think I could name you so many ways that God has tried to teach me patience over the years, and I definitely feel like I've grown, but I still have a very long way to go. You think I'd be a master at it at this point, but being patient can take so many forms too, I feel like, especially in the context of relationships, that you can learn in a bunch of different ways. I feel like we're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's being patient when there is like someone on the horizon or you have a prospect and you're just kind of waiting for things to develop is one thing. And then there's being patient when there's absolutely no one in sight. Those are two very different types of patience, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Which one do you think is harder? I put myself that I had to ask this question, not answer it.
You do still have to answer it. That is one of our rules here. Yes. Don't ask a question you're not willing to answer.
That's true.
I honestly don't know.
I don't either.
Whichever one I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
That's the harder one.
That's so true.
So.
Yeah, because, I mean, I feel like I'm at a place where I'm like, I don't know of a single person that I would be like, oh, I want to date him. Like, anybody that I know personally. And just the thought of like, okay, Lord, you're literally going to have to bring him out of the woodwork here. Because there's just not even, maybe him or maybe this guy or whatever. But then when there is somebody and it's not moving forward, then you're like, okay, Lord, any day now, like tapping your watch.
Right. It's like, why is this here if it's not going to go anywhere?
Right.
And it's
or like, what's the point? Wait. If it is going to go somewhere, why is it stalling
Why not
out?
now? Yes. That's a good point.
So, yeah, I think you're right. Maybe just whatever one you're in is the most difficult.
I think so.
Because they both suck. That's basically what...
Yes. But it's worth it.
Yes, it is. Leave it to Bethany to be the positive one in this point.
Now, hold on. Let's just hold up a second. I'm saying, this is a place where I'm saying what I know to be true. I am not saying what I always do. And I can say that with a lot of confidence because you have literally had to be like, quit being an idiot several times over the past couple of months. Just with regards to my patience levels. So you just have to remember that just because you don't currently see an end in sight doesn't mean there isn't one, and it doesn't mean God doesn't see it. So this patience comes back to, as so many things do, what do you truly believe about God and who he says he is?
Yeah. Well, and a wise woman once told me that the best lessons are never the easiest to learn, but they're the ones that stick with you. I was actually journaling about this, oddly enough, the other day, where the temptation we have to pay more attention to our feelings than what we know to be true and what God's word says is true. It can be so easy for us to say things like, Lord, I know you say that you work all things together for good, but this doesn't feel good right now. But instead, you can flip it and say, you know what, this doesn't feel good right now, but I know that you work all things together for good. And just putting the emphasis on what you know is true, whether it feels true or not, what you know is true and what you believe is true and what God's word says is true versus what you're feeling. That's what's going to make the difference here.
Oh, totally. And I think you have to shift your mindset to realize that patience doesn't always pay off by you getting what you want or what you were waiting for. Instead, the payoff of your patience is learning to just be still and trust in the Lord and know in a more and more tangible way that his timing and his, like you said, what he's working for good is always the best good. It's not just a passable good, it's the best good for you, even if it doesn't feel like it, like you said. And so we just said a whole lot of things there that are true and that's right, and it sounds all wonderful, but we have been seriously back and forth with each other the past couple of months of just like, okay, you know this is true. Speak truth to yourself. Tell yourself what's true, even if it doesn't feel like it, and there's an empathy to, I hate that you're feeling this way right now, but that doesn't give you license to disregard truth.
Well, and I can't stress enough either the importance of having community around this. Like, totally I told Bethany the other day, I'm like, I'm so glad I'm doing this with you, this podcast and having these conversations and all this stuff, because whenever I'm on a ledge, she's talking me down. When she's on a ledge, I'm talking her down. And
so far, we haven't been out there together.
Yes. Which
if that happens,
we'll call Melanie and Lindsay.
And be like, help
us. But just, I really, really, really would encourage you, especially if you find yourself asking these same questions or having these same conversations, really lean into the godly people in your life to process this with you and to point you to what you know is true, especially like we've been saying, when you're just like, oh, this sucks and I hate this and I don't want to do this anymore, and can I not just marry Dansby Swanson and call it a day? So,
hey, that's 2 episodes in a row you've talked about Dansby.
Yay! Maybe I'll start making it a tradition. It'll be like one of those, like, how can I work him into every episode?
Okay. Challenge accepted.
Yes. Okay.
That's hilarious.
Yes. Moving on.
Okay. So, another area that we've talked about a lot, and this isn't necessarily dating specific, it can be, but we have talked a lot about extending grace, even when you don't want to, which I think is probably a lot of the times, because when you're showing grace to someone, you're showing kindness and favor that they don't deserve. And so it's in our human state. A lot of times when you're showing grace to someone, it's even when you don't want to. So we've talked about that a lot, and just being understanding of other people's perspectives, and then also realizing that just because people are different, or they have a different perspective or different opinion or just a different viewpoint from you, doesn't necessarily mean one of you is wrong. There can be 2 approaches to things. There can be 2 different takes on things. There can be 2 different ways of doing things. And if we're not talking about a scriptural issue, if it's a preferential thing, then there can be 2 ways of viewing things. It doesn't always have to be that it's your way or the highway, and whether it's talking about patience, like we said, or timing, which we're going to get to later. Just because something's not your timing doesn't mean you can be rude and not gracious to people, even if you might want to. And then a huge part of that too is assuming the best of other people, because you know that just because they're differing from you, or people are going to be different from you. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I really have to take to heart, because I am a pretty opinionated and strong-willed person. Would you say that's an accurate
I would say so
description of me? And so I can very easily just think that, well, my way of thinking about things just makes sense, and why would anyone want to do something differently than the way I think they should? And so then that easily, if left unchecked, translates into, well, if someone's doing something or saying something or thinks something different from me, then they're doing it as a personal attack on me. Like, they're trying to get at me for something, and you are not assuming the best of that person. And I hate to break it to you, and I break it to myself, you're not that important that they're going to spend that much time trying to do that. And so I'm like, Bethany, nobody cares. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal. And so just working on extending grace and assuming the best in general is something that I have to work on. But then it also translates into the dating realm too, I think.
I think so too, because this is where it gets down to the nitty gritty of, when you talk about the difference between how guys and girls approach things within dating. Guys communicate differently than girls do. Guys approach relationships differently. They process things differently. They have different methodology. They may think they've figured out exactly what you want, and it's the furthest thing from what you want. But again, that's where this grace comes in. My pastor talks about the difference between trust and suspicion. He's like, what you place in the gap between trusting someone and being suspicious of them is so important, because if you're, like Bethany said, assuming the best, even if they do screw up or they do hurt you, you're assuming the best. You are giving them the benefit of the doubt, whereas they may actually be thinking through things in a valid way. But if you're just immediately suspicious that, oh my gosh, well, they just must be wanting to drive me crazy, or they just must be totally oblivious at how they're making me feel, or, X, Y, Z.
Yeah, and if you've decided that about someone, every little thing they do is going to fit right into what you've already decided. It's like we talk about, y'all know we're like true crime podcast, weird, junky people. Yeah. So we talk when we're like analyzing episodes and who done it.
Yes.
You talk a lot about in police work. You go into a case, you go into a crime scene, and you take in all of the evidence, and then you go where the evidence tells you. You don't go in and decide, oh, I bet this person did it, and then look for things to make that the case, because then you'll find it. And you'll make everything fit into that.
Wrongly convicted.
Exactly. So you don't want to go around wrongly convicting your boyfriend about every little thing because you've already decided he's trying to annoy you. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time he's not. You just have to really think about, he communicates differently. He thinks about things differently. His approach to relationships is different because your roles in the relationship are different. He's thinking about different things more than you are because of your different roles within a relationship even. And so extend grace. Give the benefit of the doubt. Be understanding. Assume the best.
It's going to take you a lot further and give you a lot more peace.
Sure.
As you are trying to navigate dating and relationships, because they're hard enough on their own when you are assuming the best about somebody. So when you get to the point where you're looking for things to go wrong or to be wrong or to be hurtful, it makes it worse than it has to be.
Oh, it totally does. And I think that's more on you than the other person.
Oh, completely.
Like, that's a you issue. That's not a they need to fix stuff issue.
I completely agree.
Okay. So our next thing we've talked about a lot here is a little bit lighter of a topic. So we've gone back and forth. Y'all know we're big proponents of online dating. We recommend it.
Yes.
We have done tons of resources on our Patreon about that very specific thing. I've had success. Have we both had success?
No, I have not.
You haven't ever dated. Okay, I've had success with online dating. I recommend it to people. However, it's not always the right answer at every juncture in your life. And so we've both had some conversations lately. We'll just be totally transparent here. I texted Kristen probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was like, just really cute pilot on Hinge who's messaging me. He wants to talk to me. I need you to talk me out of it. I don't know that it's a good idea. I hadn't messaged him. That was my text to Kristen. And I kid you not, it probably had not been 60 seconds. My phone was ringing. I just picked answer. I hit answer, and I didn't say a word. And she proceeded to tell me all of the reasons why it was a bad idea, that I knew it was a bad idea, but I was in one of those places of not being patient, and I needed someone to talk me off the ledge. And so she did, but that's something we've talked about a lot, because then the pendulum swung the other way.
And the next week, I'm like, Bethany, I know it's 10:30 on a Friday night, but I really want to download Hinge. What should I do? She's like, probably not.
I was like, there's this girl on this podcast, and I heard her say one time that you should never download a dating app at 10:30 on a Friday night. I'm like, I'm pretty sure those are her exact words, actually. So
yeah, I may have said that once or twice. Yes, my rule is if you want to download it on a Friday night, wait until Tuesday at lunch. And if you still want to, then maybe.
And she was right, because by the time the next Tuesday rolled around after I had my little meltdown, I was like, over it. The pilot? Who?
Yeah. Who was I talking about?
Anyway.
Yeah. Seriously, I have really been struggling with this one, because this is one of those instances where I'm really being challenged to practice what I preach, because how many times have we talked about online dating? And my criteria that I tell people is, one, if you are at a place where you're not really meeting anybody and you want to put yourself in a place where you can meet people, then I think it's a good option. And two, if you're not at a place where you feel like you're just trying to make something happen because you're tired of being alone.
Yeah.
Which that one I'm a little iffy on, personally, of where I'm at.
You're certainly not meeting anyone right now.
No.
That's for sure. And then,
Yeah, because I've just started a new job. I work with like 6 other people, and there's one other girl who's single, and then 5 middle-aged married men. So there's the
dating pool at work is non-existent.
Yeah, it's just literally non-existent. So
start breaking stuff so people have to like come fix it, and maybe they'll be like, oh, the computer guy is cute, or the AC guy is cute, or
maybe, I don't know. We'll just
it could get expensive.
Knocking holes in the wall. Like, is the sheetrock guy attractive? Like, what does this look like? But no, so I'm not meeting anybody. I have, everybody seems like they are on dating apps right now. And
doesn't it always seem like it works for everyone else?
Okay, yes. So one of the girls, I grew up with her. Our moms have known each other for years. She just got married last month.
Okay.
Met the guy on Hinge. Half her bridesmaids, their boyfriends, they all met on Hinge. So my mom, of course, was telling me all about this. My mom is a very big proponent of online dating. And what was funny is the girl who got married posted today on her Instagram, a year ago today, she posted this picture of her with a tractor, and her caption had been like, "You can catch me on Farmers Only." Ha,
oh my word.
She met Mark, her husband, the next week on Hinge.
You're kidding me.
No. And now they're married.
That's funny.
So I'm like, okay, well, clearly it works. And not that I didn't think it did before, but you're seeing all of this. I have my mom, who is ever so lovingly encouraging me to get online. But I do really still struggle with being very transparent with y'all. One, am I not trusting the Lord and trying to make something happen here? Where is my heart in this? Mm-hmm. And two, the hopeless romantic in me wants to be able to say, we met at a Christmas party and we locked eyes across the room and it's, been history ever since.
Yeah.
Not, we both liked each other's pictures on a dating app.
You locked eyes across a screen.
Yeah.
And
it's all in the phrasing.
Then 24 hours later, he did too.
But I did read something really cool, because after I decided at 10:30 on Friday night not to download the app, I Googled, is online dating not trusting God? And I found that's where my mind was at. But I found this blog post from Stephanie Mae Wilson, who we have talked about on here before. And she did a whole blog post about this whole topic about online dating and how it fits in with being a Christian and all of that. And she said, these are not dating apps. They're introductory apps or introduction apps. Mm-hmm. They get people to meet people and then you start dating. But she was like, don't think that your story isn't less wonderful or cute or romantic or whatever just because it's through this particular medium.
Yeah, well, and you and I have talked about that. I think you were telling me about the post, and I was like, yeah, I mean, the last guy I dated that I met online, you very quickly not forget that you met online, but they're a real person then. And so it's not any different than if you met him at the grocery store or whatever, you know? And so you just have to maybe get over a mental block there. But I would say too, and I was talking with someone not too long ago about this very thing of like, okay, I'm not sure about getting online because they were like, I don't know if I'm trying to take this into my own control. And I said, there are people who will say that online dating inherently is not trusting the Lord. I disagree with that. I think it's just another way the Lord uses to introduce people, like she was saying. But I think if you're going into it with the mindset being, well, I'm just going to get this all worked out myself, then that's a hard issue and you're not trusting the Lord. But I think you can do that just as much in another realm other than online too. You can do that just as much, whether it's some guy at church or some guy at the office that you're just constantly
trying to make something happen.
Right. It doesn't have to be online specific, I guess, is what I was meaning.
That's true. And so that's why I've been talking to Bethany so much about it, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, where do I fall on that spectrum? Am I at a place where I truly am just not meeting anybody and I think this is a good next step? Or am I just wanting to be in a relationship and this, I think, is my quickest way because I don't have a prospect right now? So...
Well, and I would say too, and I have not said this to you yet, I just thought of it.
Okay. Lay it on me. Live advice, people.
In your evaluations of these things, do you find yourself trying to talk yourself out of it or trying to talk yourself into it? Because I think that could be a huge indicator as to whether or not you're ready or in a good place to do that. You can think on that and we'll talk later.
Yes.
But I would pose the same question to you out there in listener land. If you're on the fence but you're trying to talk yourself out of it, there's your answer. And same thing the other way. If you're on the fence but you're trying to talk yourself into it, then I think it's worth exploring a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good question. I'll ponder on that. Maybe we'll include that in the video
that
too. My answer.
Yeah, there we go. We'll put that in the video.
Well,
perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Moving on.
Okay.
Next topic.
The next one that's come up, this one's been more recent. I almost said more recent-er. That's not good English. As we've talked about, like, okay, as you're thinking about the potential of a new relationship, the doubts start to creep in. Depending on how or why your last relationship or your last couple of relationships ended, you start to think, well, especially if it was for similar reasons, you start to say, well, what if the next relationship is like the last relationship? What if the next guy does the same thing as the last guy? Or maybe you're the one that broke up with him. And it's like, well, what if this ends the same way as the last one? And you kind of have this internal battle, and it kind of, I don't know, insecurities may come up, but it kind of just is in the back of your head and can make you a little bit hesitant or fearful, partially just because it's unknown. You don't know.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the reward has to outweigh the risk in your mind before you're willing to move forward. You have to, because you'll have the thought, I mean, oh my gosh, what if I get hurt again?
Yeah.
Like, I just got crushed. So I'm setting myself up for that to happen again, but is it worth it for me to risk
you
that?
have to get to that point. And one thing I struggle with is I have this thought, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not dating anyone now. No one's wanting to date me. The last guy, that didn't work out. And so I'm like, well, what if there really is something, quote unquote, wrong with me and just no one will tell me? Because I mean, I've asked you, I've asked other people, I've said, look, I'm not looking for I'm not trying to be pitied. I'm not looking for fishing for compliments. I'm legitimately saying, is there something that I am exhibiting that would be a huge deterrent, or it would be something that is very much a turn off or whatever? And I'm like, I want you to tell me because I want to work on it. And I think that's a valuable question to ask, not from a place of you just want people to tell you, oh no, you're wonderful.
You're so great.
Have people in your life that you can legitimately say, hey, tell me what those things are, because then they will. I mean, you've told me and we've talked about stuff. I'm like, oh, that's true. You know, ask yourself those tough questions. But yeah, you have to get to that place where the reward, outweighs the risk.
Yeah. If you're not careful, your insecurities can really overwhelm you here if you get too bogged down by this question, because that's something I've been wrestling with, because you start to think, okay, well, what if the next guy doesn't like me for the same reason the last guy didn't? And
it's not something I can fix.
Yeah, like this is just me.
Right.
And I saw this Instagram quote the other day, which I know is, cheesy.
No,
but
it's good.
I'm going to butcher it, but she basically said, who you are won't be enough for the wrong person. But I guess, or the best of you will never be good enough for the wrong person, but the worst of you will never be enough to chase the right person away.
That's true.
And I was like, dang.
Yeah.
That's so good. Because I've even thought about, like, my parents. I'm like, I've seen the best and worst of my parents, obviously, because I've lived around them my entire life. They've seen way more than I have, probably, because they're married and they interact completely differently than I do with them. But just the fact that they've been married for over 30 years. And I truly believe there is nothing that my mom could do to make my dad want to leave, and vice versa. Like, they are so committed because they know, I mean, they made this commitment, obviously, but they want to be with each other for the rest of their lives. And just the thought of, okay, you know what? When it is the right guy, even when I am literally at my worst, he's going to be like, you know what? I still want to be with you.
Yeah.
And you think about, like, I know that sounds so cliche and sometimes impossible to believe, but you think about your friends. I mean, my really close friends, like, we could get in a fight, or we could do something that would really bug each other, or you could be in a really awful mood, or I could be in a really terrible mood. We're not going to stop being friends.
Right.
We have to work through it, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be friends with Bethany anymore. No, you wouldn't do that. And that will translate into a relationship eventually.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. When those insecurities start to, like, creep in, you have to go to what you know to be true, not what feels true in the moment, and, you know, move forward with that. But it's not easy.
No.
There's all the second guessing and the overthinking and the overanalyzing and the everything else, whether it's overanalyzing what just happened with a breakup or overanalyzing what is upcoming with a new guy. There's a lot of that happens, and so you've just got to be in a place where, you're looking at the truth about yourself, about relationships in general, about how you should act, and then let the rest work itself out.
Exactly. But we're with you. We get it.
Yes.
It's not easy. Okay, so a couple other, these won't be as long and deep and bearing soul worthy. One thing, I'm not going to speak for Bethany on this one, because I think this may be specific to me, but I had the thought the other day of, do I even want to date anybody right now? Because I have a lot coming up in the next 2 months, and there are things that I want to be able to do all these things.
Yeah, that's specific to you.
Okay, just making sure. And so, if I started dating somebody right now, if I do start dating somebody right now, I'm not going to complain. But that's going to change the way my next couple months looks. And I've got all these really fun things lined up. And so, do I even want to? That's another question I'm asking myself as I'm thinking, should I download Hinge? You know, is this a good time? Or do I wait till January? And not only because I want to go do all these things, but I want to be present as I do these things. One of our really good friends, Stephanie, responded to our Instagram story when we asked about the perks of being single a few weeks ago. And she gave like 18 answers that were quite funny. But she said one of the things she loves about being single is that she gets to be more fully present where you are at the present moment. Not rushing to get home or to answer a phone call or answer a text. Just being in the moment with others without being afraid to offend the guy you're dating for, quote unquote, ignoring them for a while. And that's so true, because I've thought about either if he is with me while I'm doing these things, I'm so enthralled with him, and is he having a good time, and are we good, and this is going to be great, and let's, get a picture, and blah, that I'm not fully soaking this in with everybody else. Not that, that comes with being in a relationship, but there's that. Or if he's not there, I'm excited about getting home and talking to him on the phone or texting him, or I'm missing him when I'm not able to talk to him. And these are all things to consider as I'm going into the next couple very busy months. So I've just been trying to process all of that and be honest with myself.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. I think you must just have a lot more fun things planned than I do, because that hadn't really
I had a
factored in
list
for me.
November the other day. I was like, man, it's going to be a great month.
I'm like, no, I got time.
Yeah, Bethany's good. So that's where we differ. But that was, and I think that's okay. And when I was telling Bethany this when we were planning, and I'm like, I feel kind of selfish saying this. And she's like, Kristen, that's not selfish. That's being aware of where you're at, and you're taking advantage of the season that you're in.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And speaking of seasons, we're going into the holiday season, and that's part of it for me. I'm like, I wasn't planning to be single over the holidays. And so I'm like, so if I could avoid that, that would be great.
That'd be nice.
That's but no,
very
for real.
Frequent conversation.
Something we've talked about is, okay, it's good grief. It's practically the end of October.
Holy crap.
Like, where has the time gone? So, but for real, going into the holidays single currently, when you thought that wouldn't be the case this year.
It's not fun.
That's not a fun place to be.
No. And I know we keep teasing this episode. The heartbreak episode is coming, people. We are going to talk about this.
We just needed a little time.
Yeah, but these relationships we were in earlier this year were serious. And we were both banking on having these guys with us at Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and what
on and on and on.
Exactly. And so, obviously, that's not the case anymore.
Right.
So your whole, like you said, the whole holiday season looks completely different.
It is. You have to, totally reshape that. And I think that's a harder thing to accept the closer you get of realizing, oh, this is going to look totally different than I thought. I don't think you realize how much you've set those expectations until you're like, oh. Like, at least for me, I didn't even realize I had thought about it that much until I'm like, wow, this is going to look totally different.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
You just have to take the time to think through, like we were talking about before. This is for my good. This is for, everyone's good, the situation, even if it doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. And we were talking, what was it, last episode, 2 episodes ago, about, one of the biggest things that you get antsy about in a relationship is how are you going to spend the holidays and, splitting time. And so I'm not trying to be, cliche, but embrace it then.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting here thinking, oh my word, I'm alone for the holidays, say, okay, here's another holiday season that I get to spend the whole time with my family, doing all the traditions that we always do and do everything just how I want to and enjoy that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. As hard as some of these topics are, there is good to be found in all of them.
Totally.
So some you have to look harder than others, but it's there. So don't get too discouraged and think, this is a dead end and this is terrible for all of these. There is hope to be found in each one of these scenarios and just parts of life that you have to go through. So the last thing that we've been talking about really is just a culmination of everything we just talked about.
Yeah, and this one isn't even just now.
Oh, no.
We talk about this
all the time.
Constantly, regardless of whether there's a boy in the picture or not, or the prospect of one or not,
or whether it even has to do with dating or not.
Exactly. This is just something that comes up over and over. So
yeah, and that thing is timing. And your timing versus God's timing, which I don't know about you, but rarely does that ever line up for me. And
unfortunately, you're always the one that's in the wrong there.
Exactly. And, you have to figure out, okay, how do I balance knowing that God's timing is perfect, but then also coming to grips with the fact that the plans and the timing that I had in my mind are not going to happen. So what, Bethany? What do I do? Help me. Help our listeners.
I think for me, this always comes back to, and I feel like whenever these timing things are not what I hoped they would be, whether it's dating or otherwise, I feel like it's always a way of the Lord just testing me and say, hey, who do you really think has control of your life? And unfortunately, 9.78 times out of 10, it would seem, I somehow think I have control of my life, and I don't. And I don't learn that lesson well. I want to have control over every little detail, and I want to be the one saying this is going to happen here, and then this will happen, and then this will happen at this time, and then this much later this happens. And it all works out perfectly in my head, but I'm not the God of my little universe. So it's God's way of saying, hey, don't forget I'm in control. And there's such a grace in that. He doesn't have to do that. He's in control whether I stop and think about it or not. And even though, we've talked about so much, it doesn't feel good in the moment, but stopping and saying, thank you for showing me that. That's where the good comes out. As we're talking about, good comes from all situations, even if it doesn't feel good. It is for your good that you realize that God is in control, and you acknowledge that, and you submit to that, even if your plan would have worked out perfectly in your head. If all the other people would have just done what you wanted them to do or say or whatever. And so that's one of the biggest things for me with timing is it's always just God's way of saying, hey, this may not look like what you wanted it to, but I'm still in control. I'm still on the throne. I am good and I am sufficient for whatever you have to deal with. And I was just talking to someone after church last week, and our pastor had talked about, she was like, did you hear that line? It was so good. And he said that interacting with, I'm gonna get the gist of, interacting with God's truth from a distance is deadly. And I think this is a place where you can get up close and personal and really dig into God's truth and say, you're in control, not me. Your timing is better than mine. Your ways are higher than mine. And realizing, he said too in the same sermon, that in all of our deficiencies, he is sufficient. So whether it's deficiency of not being able to see all of the pieces that are at work in a situation, or a deficiency of saying, you think you know better than God, which really, when you're trying to take control from him and control timing of something, that's what you're saying. And we don't want to say that's what we're saying, because that doesn't sound very nice. Yeah. And we don't want to admit that, I do think I know more than God, but I do so often. And so whether the timing of your life lined up with how you thought it would perfectly or not, God is using that to refine you and to remind you that he's in control. And I think that's the biggest thing I take away from these conversations is, I'm not the one in control.
Mm-hmm. I would be very confident in wagering the fact that most people have had more than one instance where life hasn't gone according to their timing.
I think so.
And so I think it's super helpful to look back and see, okay, this is something that didn't go according to my plan and my timing, but look how it turned out.
Right. I never would have imagined that.
Yes.
I would have never thought I wanted that or needed that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just being able to look back on God's goodness and faithfulness and how he's proven himself trustworthy, even though he doesn't have to.
Right.
But he chooses to appease our human,
which is so
limited-mindedness.
Amazing.
Yes. And so, like you said, gracious of him. I would encourage you, think back on times where, you know what, this didn't go the way I thought it would, but look at how God worked it out. Mm-hmm. And that will just fuel your trust more in the current situation when your dating life or your career or your fill in the blank isn't going according to your timetable.
Yep.
So.
And we say that to you with a lot of confidence.
Yes.
Because we know it to be true. But trust me, there are times on a fairly regular basis when one of us is calling the other, basically saying, I need you to tell me that. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't feel true. I don't want it to be true. I want what I want.
Yeah.
And that's why God gives you friends.
Yes.
So that they can push you along that journey of sanctification.
Exactly.
Kicking and screaming the whole way sometimes.
Kicking and screaming. Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man. Okay.
Well, guys, we just unloaded on y'all. But we hope that, one, this has been encouraging just in general, but two, that you feel some empathy and come to the realization that you are not alone and that we don't have it all figured out, despite the fact that we're the ones with the microphones somehow.
Yeah, that's something that's really important to us.
Yeah.
Is we don't want to sound like experts talking at you. Mm-mm. We want to be friends and comrades in the trenches with you, fighting those same fights that you are.
Yeah.
So feel free to reach out if you have a question or need help or you just need someone to tell you to keep going. Mm-hmm. We are there for you.
We are, for sure.
Yes.
So we will be back on Friday with another Couch Cast. But until then, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle.